Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and I don't like to harp on issues much. I end up doing it a lot, and I don't like to say I told you so, but I have to from time to time, and this is one of those. I've mentioned the mantra that the gun is evil, the gun is evil, the gun is evil. Not the evil person using it for harm, but it's the inanimate object, and that's been the mantra of gun control idiots since the argument began. Because they all know it's the human behind the tool. Otherwise, we would hear knives are evil, bats are evil, cars are evil, clubs are evil, fists are evil. But we don't do that because that's obviously idiotic. Unfortunately, firearms are specifically designed to do one thing, and that is to project a small amount of normally lead, sometimes with a bit of steel in it, downrange at high speed to impact something at very high velocity and thus damage what it hits. Most firearms in the US are used for sporting or hunting. Gun violence, as far as murders by gun, make up about 4% of all deaths in America. And of that 4%, murder is very small. But let's look at what the exalted liberals have to tell us this time. We have here what guns do to our state of mind. It is both the technology and the symbolism of a gun that can encourage someone to shoot. Chelsea Kivland, April 19th of this year. Whenever someone touches that gun, he'll die at some point because it acts on you. Explained a 37-year-old man who lives in the poor neighborhood of Bel Air in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, where I have worked as an anthropologist since 2008. Cal, apparently not his real name, was talking about a specific Smith & Wesson 38 Special caliber revolver. It's actually a 38 caliber or 38 Special. It's not 38 Special caliber. You might want to talk to someone, maybe an FFL dealer who knows a thing or two about firearms. Long, the standard issue gun of American police and U.S. trained security forces in Haiti. I don't know about Haiti, but I know the 38 Special is not a good gun for law enforcement. It's very small. 38 caliber is one of the smallest handgun calibers out there, at least that's legal to carry in the U.S. But it's very inexpensive to purchase. After being purchased for $75 from a former Army soldier, this gun passed through the hands of three men: a young father, Franz, Papa, a young man, and Henri, another new father. All three were shot and killed in their community between December of 2012 and February of 2013. Although the Trantui 38, as residents call the gun, did not fire all the lethal bullets, all died while in possession of it. When I asked Belarians why these deaths occurred, they often surmised that the gunman fell victim to magi, or magic. In Haiti, magic refers to an unethical use of spiritual power, distinct from ceremonial forms of voodoo, which call on ancestors to heal and protect the family. Voodoo is the preferred spelling rather than voodoo, which some practitioners view as derogatory. I would argue here that the first spelling would be the preferred spelling, and the other would be a bastardization used by people who don't use it as the residents here say it should be used. This form of magic entails engaging with secret powers that allow a person to advance at the expense of another. To many, the men died because the occult forces they had been using for unethical gain had ultimately turned against them, opening them up to conflict and failing to protect them. Yet when neighbors relayed how the deaths happened, they offered explanations involving a different kind of occult transformation, the supernatural potency of the 38 to change people into unethical agents. With each subsequent death, lore intensified around the gun, with people surmising that touching this gun could portend death. Ever since they touched the gun, those poor young boys were not the same, said one community member. Residents spoke about the gun as if it were an amulet that could change otherwise good people and what they did in the world. It would be short-sighted to dismiss these claims as the misguided logic of a superstitious people. That racially infected trope, long used to marginalize and demonize Haitians, among others, blinds observers to the way in which guns do exhibit a power akin to magic, the power to create a change in someone's state of mind. Taking seriously the supernatural effects of guns has broad relevance for understanding and addressing gun violence globally. In the U.S., gun advocates tend to view the gun as a value-neutral tool. As they say, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Uh, I'll admit I did take part in the meme, the joke, where I would take a photograph of one of my firearms laying on my bed, and I would caption it with, "This little guy laid here all day and didn't kill anybody." It's because it's an inanimate object. It has no moving parts that are not exerted on, have pressure exerted on them externally. It cannot act on its own. It has no will. It has no soul. It has nothing that can make it do anything. It is a piece of metal, in some cases with plastic or wooden furniture added. Furniture being uh, pistol grips or the stock or so on. On the other side are gun control advocates who argue that guns do indeed kill people. Without their lethal power easily at hand, as in other countries, far fewer deaths occur. Why is London seeking to GPS track knives if guns are the only problem? But the anthropological lesson from Haiti is that the truth is more complex. It isn't just the technological lethality of guns that makes them dangerous. They also exert a power on human agency. They change us. It is both the technology and symbolism of a gun that can encourage someone to shoot. Such power means that, in contemporary urban Haiti, guns are both revered and reviled. On one hand, gun possession stands for popular sovereignty. It was, after all, the courage of enslaved people to take up arms against a colonial power that secured Haiti's independence in 1804. Notice that's just 28 years after the U.S. was freed from colonial rule. After the Haitian Revolution, generals distributed rifles to veterans as they transitioned to civilian life. For many years afterward, peasant armies were able to use their weapons to control regional territories and wage coups. As part of an effort to centralize power, the Duvalier family dictatorship, which lasted from 1957 to 1986, restricted gun ownership to the regime's parliamentary network. In an effort to shift power to the people in 1987, the democratic constitution adopted after the fall of the dictatorship granted citizens the right to armed self-defense. In a similar vein, the U.S. Constitution, drafted on the heels of imperial rule and the War of Independence, enshrines the right to bear arms. I would just say the Constitution does not enshrine or grant a right, it lists one that must be protected. However, guns in Haiti, as elsewhere, can also symbolize the abuse of power. Although a general term for leader, the Haitian Creole chef was, when used in reference to an armed person, invokes the chef section chief, the term formerly used for the dictatorship's henchmen. Beyond a uniform and ID card, it was the government-issued 38 caliber revolver that gave the chef section impunity to do anything in the name of their leader. Today, the term chef is used both as an honorific for and a vituperation of the armed actors who protect the people and those that abuse them. These contradictory meanings are particularly at play when the term is applied to the heads of urban bases, neighborhood organizations that have, since the fall of the dictatorship, taken on political and economic leadership of marginal urban zones. To wield a gun, and a 38 in particular, can signal a claim to urban chiefdom. Residents foregrounded this symbolism in the story they told about the deaths of Franz, Papa, and Henri. As the story circulated and became standardized among neighbors, I began to understand it as less a factual account of what happened than a framing device for how to understand the pivotal role of the 38 in what occurred. You want to know the story of Henri's death? Kyle asked me once. It's a story of 3 deaths, maybe more. Okay, here's the story. According to Kyle, it all started because Baz leader Franz brought his gun to his birthday party, a big affair thrown in the street, complete with a DJ. At the time, a rival boss, led by Papa, was competing for control of the neighborhood, and the group made this clear by coming to the party uninvited and armed. Papa was not happy to see that Franz had his gun on him and was waving it in the air. When they saw the 38, they wanted to ruin the party, Cal told me. Then Papa shot at him. It happened quickly. Boom, he was lying on the ground. Everyone ran. So now Papa has the 38, continued Cal. A few weeks later, Papa and his friends went to another party hosted by a boss on a different block. Papa's group felt in control and at ease, drinking beer, dancing, and shooting into the air. A member of the host boss Henri, took offense to the brazen display and told Papa that his guys can't just come into their party and start shooting. Papa saw things differently. We'll shoot if we want to. If the man has the 38, it's shooting he'll do. To which Boss Henri responded, if you keep shooting, I'm going to get my weapon. When Henri confronted Papa, it was, as Call recalled, bam, bam, bam. Papa was killed. After the shooting, everyone ran, everyone except Henri, who found the 38 and claimed it. Call surmised he did so because he knew that gun has a lot of power. With the 38 in hand, Henri began to act differently. To many, he appeared to have gone crazy with power, ordering people around, inciting fights, and even stealing from neighbors. As Call told it, Henri was acting as anyone with a gun like that would. You become a hothead. You feel force inside the body, and you think you can do anything. He'll go hustle, rob people, and the police guy finds him and fires many bullets. And that's how Henri met his end. That is the story as it was told to me by Call. And so it might not represent exactly how things happen or even how others saw it, but Call's story was also not unique. It aligned with the crime reports, and it resonated with what I heard from many others, most importantly in how they saw the role of the gun. Although the gun had a potent effect on all three men, it did not act on them in the same way. For Franz and Papa, the gun enabled and epitomized their doomed claims to sovereign control of the bloc. For Henri, the gun pushed him into a trajectory of criminal action that could have only one outcome. Echoing Call, Henri's friend explained, he saw the weapon and he saw the road before him. Yet another said, before he was a nice young man, but the 38 showed him another way. He wanted to carry a bad name, like Papa. The gun in these accounts served not just as a tool that enabled pre-existing intentions, but as a catalyst for the development of previously inconceivable ones. The supernatural potency of the gun is its power to lay out new possibilities. A gun is not just an inanimate object that can be separated from its user's intentions. A gun held by a person is a human technology composite that transforms what both can do in the world. As the philosopher and anthropologist Bruno Latour has argued, you are another subject because you hold the gun. The gun is another object because it has entered into a relationship with you. A bad guy becomes a worse guy. A silent gun becomes a fired gun. The crux of this view is that people are needed to activate technology, and technology is necessary to activate and augment human capabilities. Yet Belarian's account pushed this idea even further. Guns and people work together not only to fire a gun, but also to imbue that technology with social meanings of power and violence. The potency of the 38 results from the way in which material objects and people must co-participate in creating lethal actors and actions in the world. In the US, the AR-15 is the gun that has this power. It was an AR-15 that was used, sometimes with other weapons, to shoot and kill at a Pittsburgh synagogue, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, a Baptist church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. It was also one that stopped that killer. In a concert in Las Vegas, and the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, among others. I will argue that Las Vegas was a psychopath who used more than just an AR-15. And if I remember correctly, Sandy Hook, the AR-15 was left in the car, and it was a pistol that was used. Please correct me on that one if I'm wrong. The AR-15 is easy to use and extremely lethal. It is no more lethal than any other firearm on the market. And, since the end of the assault rifle ban in 2004, abundant and accessible. Yet its availability and technology are only part of the story. It is also America's rifle. No, it's not. Used by video game avatars and military heroes in the addition to mass shooters. No, it is not. Mass shooters use pistols and shotguns almost exclusively. The firearms in video games are M16s, M60s, light attack weapons, pistols, and shotguns. They are military weapons. They are not AR-15s. Armalite tried in the 60s to sell their rifle to the military and was told no. It is an icon of popular entertainment and national defense, and now tragedy. Franz, Papa, and Henry died untimely, unnecessary deaths, as did the 142 people, 139 victims, and 3 gunmen in the 5 mass shootings listed above. There is a lesson to be gleaned from understanding the supernatural potency of guns. We cannot think about guns and people as a separate entity, debating gun restrictions on one hand and mental health policy on the other. The target of intervention must be the gun-person composite. If we are truly to understand and control gun violence, we need to accept that guns have potent technological and psychological effects on people, effects that inspire violent ways of being and acting in the world. Yes, I wish I could embed the clip of the principal from Billy Madison. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to you. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. This is insane, plain and simple. I am not an anthropologist. I am a historian. I am certified to teach secondary social studies, which, as I've said before, includes history, economics, government, geography, psychology, sociology, and social psychology, should those subjects be taught in the school where I am teaching. There is no magical effect of a piece of steel that may have plastic or wooden furniture on it that expels a projectile downrange at high speed for an impact with a target. There is no magical spirit that lays dormant in that piece of metal until picked up by a human. I can tell you exactly what the sociological and psychological effects of this so-called 38 Special are. It is an icon. It is the same icon as a sword on the hip, a badge on the shirt, a tricorn hat on a pirate ship, or a sash worn by an officer on a British naval ship during its empirical days. It is the same iconography as a toga style worn in the Senate versus in local local towns throughout the Roman Empire. It is the icon of Herod ruling over the Jews in Judea Samaria back in the very, very early days of the BCE time period. It is the same as a staff or rod carried by a pharaoh to rule over Egypt. It is not a magical icon. It is a physical, inanimate object that people have attributed a story to. As I said at the beginning, a 38 Special is not a good firearm to carry. It is a normally 5-shot revolver, although I believe there are 6-shot varieties, that fires a 38 caliber projectile, which is very small in handgun parlance. 9mm is quite a bit bigger and still considered small. It's preferred by governments and such in places like Haiti for its inexpensive price. As it said here, you can get it for $75. This is the gun that was typically carried by mobsters and gangsters because it would fit in a pocket. And that's the story of the 38 Special throughout its life, is it was the Saturday night special, so to speak. But a 38 Special, a 9mm, a 45, a 50 AE, any of them are inanimate objects. The only psychological impact they have is one granted by someone who is either mentally weak enough to say, it was the gun that made me do it, or someone who is so focused on gun control that they will actually try to legitimize making an inanimate object magical. As I've said in other places, as many have said, out of all deaths in the United States, about 4% are caused by firearms. Of that 4%, an infinitesimal percentage of them are actual homicides. When you take suicide and accidental shootings out of the gun death column, it falls dramatically. I do support education. I do support training. I do not want anyone and everyone to be able to just walk in, plunk down $100, walk out with a gun, and have no respect for it. I was raised in Texas. Rule 1 of gun safety: never point the gun at anything you do not intend to shoot. Actually, I'm sorry, that's Rule 2. Rule 1: there is no such thing as an unloaded gun. You treat that gun as if it's loaded all the time, meaning you respect the power it has as a tool, and you treat it with that respect so that it does not accidentally discharge. Even when I'm cleaning my firearm, I treat it with such respect because I want to be able to reassemble it. But I also never point it at anything I do not intend to shoot. The muzzle of that firearm is pointed in one of 3 directions: at the ground, at the sky, or at a target. Very simple. And the only target outside of a range, be it competition or just uh, going to the range for some practice, would be something that is threatening my life or the life of another. As I've said in another video, The only 3 times I've ever had to fire any of my firearms, 2 of them were to frighten coyotes off my land. The third was a skunk that we did learn later was rabid that had gotten into my dog enclosure. We had to move the dog enclosure because the stink was horrible, but those are the 3 times outside of practice time or a competition that I have had to fire my weapon. But gun control activists would have me disarmed and throwing rocks at coyotes and trying to trap a rabid skunk and telling me, well, I'm sorry it went bad, but you just can't have a gun. This is insanity. This right here is more liberal propaganda aimed at disarming you. The AR-15 is not an assault rifle. It has never been an assault rifle under any of the assault weapons bans. The assault weapons ban that ended roughly 10 years ago deemed automatic rifles, not semi-automatic, automatic rifles, those that with one pull of the trigger fire multiple rounds downrange, as assault weapons. The AR-15 has never done that when it is when it leaves the facility it's built in. Bump stocks, in my opinion, are idiotic products that waste ammunition and ruin your accuracy. But I can bump fire with a twig. I can bump fire with a belt loop. I can bump fire by not properly seating the weapon against my shoulder, because all that's required is a rocking action of the firearm to where my hand, which does not change from this uh, position, is moved back and forth to where the trigger is activated multiple times. It does not make the weapon an automatic weapon. It changes the stance of the operator. But all of these facts are ignored because with them comes the simple fact that you cannot end gun violence by banning guns, because the ones who are using them for criminal violent means and actions aren't buying them legally. So with that said, I've talked more than long enough on this one. This is one that when I saw it, I knew I had to bring here, because this is something I have said is in the liberal mind. I've mocked this idea many times that the evil gun, the inanimate piece of steel, is so evil that it changes you completely. I am 41 years old, almost 42. For almost 21 years, I've owned a firearm that is not a rifle. I actually owned a 30-06 rifle when I was 19. So we're going to say for almost 23 years I have owned a firearm. None of those firearms have ever been pointed at a human, ever. 99.9% of the time or more, they are pointed at pieces of paper on a range made safe for use of firearms and under the watchful eye of a range master. The only other times were those 2 instances with coyotes and one with a skunk. But let me know what you think. I would love for this to actually make it to a different anthropologist than the one who wrote this. Actually, multiples. Because, again, I am a historian who has also studied the other social sciences, that being psychology, sociology, social psychology, government, economics, and geography. I have not studied anthropology, cultural or otherwise. But I do know people. And an inanimate object does not change you psychologically or any other way. If you are the kind of person who picks up a gun and wants to go kill people, you are the kind of person who wanted to go kill people in the first place. Franz, Papa, and Henri in these scenarios always had the urge to control their neighborhood. And they knew that that 38 would allow them to. It's, as I said, it's an icon. Be that a staff carried by a pharaoh, toga worn by Caesar, badge worn by a sheriff, camouflage uniform worn by a soldier. It does not matter. Simply an icon that people attribute to a position in society. I could easily, given the power to travel through time, go back to prior to the Haitian independence movement and change that to a different firearm or a sword or any other weapon. And this story would have played out with that weapon. Because when you attribute this power to an inanimate object, you internalize that. Any firearm I'm holding is subservient to my will. I am not subservient to it in any way because it has no will. But let me know what you think. Remember to keep your comments civil. We do not learn from argument, we learn from debate. As always, please remember to like, comment, and share this video, as well as to subscribe and activate notifications so that you are among the first to know of any new content as it is posted. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.